And this is the Dissident. All right, and it's calling out sanctions.
We gotta get David Lynch a better profile photo.
Well, here it's just like a stick figure.
Like
it's even more of a
stick figure. Cool.
Yeah.
Yep.
But Western left does not pay a lot of attention to foreign policy. Again, along the theme, and this is another Indie News Network member. We've got 16. We added crazy. Angel last week. There's a couple more coming. Okay, and you can see here's the investigation over at ohchr.org.
So this is on sanctions, pretty much, how we're
murdering populations of Syria and Iran and Cuba and Afghanistan. Even though he misspelling to Afghanistan, but that's okay. I can actually go in and fix that. This is an issue that doesn't get the attention it deserves, and we hope this article can lead many readers to understand how horrific they really are. Sanctions do kill children, 100%, Eric T. So in Venezuela, right, they talk about how it was, the politicians like to use Venezuela as it's a horrible place, it's a terrible country, they're in shambles.
Yeah.
Terrible. But part of it is
socialist nightmare, they say.
Right. Sanctions are placed on the country because they successfully defeated our U.S.-backed coup attempts on several occasions. Right. Because of this, we've imposed sadistic sanctions on that harm the most vulnerable people in the country. And that's what happens with sanctions, because the wealthy people will be just fine in the end. They'll be inconvenienced. But again, they block the country of necessary medical equipment. Okay, and they need to be able to run schools and hospitals, public housing, electricity, gas, water. And that's what's being deprived right here.
Yeah.
They also found sanctions have crippled Venezuela's public healthcare system, leading to an increase in infant mortality, severe disease, and it's just a snowballing problem.
Yeah.
And again, the most vulnerable in society are the ones that end up suffering.
Right. It's straight up bullying, pretty much.
Okay, so this links to a Black Agenda report here from Alfred de Zayas. Again, he talks about Syria and how much money we spent to murder Syrian children. Just Aaron Mate explained, with the Doha thing, explained that sanctions are explicitly target reconstruction, leading Syrians not being able to get medical care, go to school, or buy food. It's just,
Yeah, but we're worried about Aaron Mate yelling at us.
Oh, Aaron Mate yelled at us. Oh, yeah.
Aaron Mate.
Oh, Aaron Mate. Yeah, so, okay, again, we recently hit Iran with even harsher sanctions before nuclear talks with the country. And these sanctions also have had a devastating effect on the population. And Pompeo admitted the outright purpose of these sanctions were to harm the Iranian people in an attempt for regime change. Okay, because... And this is what they're also doing. I'm sure they're going to talk about... may talk about Gaza. No, I guess not. Not here. But there's plenty... Look at the sanctions they placed on Gaza and the restrictions that are there as well. I mean, that's...
Yeah. And anyone who speaks out about them, they're also terrible people.
Yep. So here you go. The only two countries voting against the embargo on Cuba were the U.S. and Israel. Okay. Didn't stop us from continuing it, which is gross. Travel was doing well when they had reopened. I mean, go ahead.
This is what our empire thinks is walking softly, right? The issue of other countries standing up to us is because we also have the big stick, right? We have a giant military force and we continue to fund it. We continue to give money to it and just, that's the problem, right? Who wants to stand up to the bully that's got the brass knuckles? It's that to me is part of the issue, right? America doesn't have any real threat against it in any way, even economically, right? I mean, that's why we're the most worried about China and whatever right now, right? Like, or what the establishment is worried about. But
yeah, that seems to be what they're worried
they might
about.
be able to put sanctions on us, like, so when that happens, it's going to be a problem.
Well, they're going to have to restrict goods or use their leverage to influence certain countries to not ship goods or do business, or like you said, sanctioning. And wouldn't China potentially at some point look to put sanctions on the U.S. and they could, we want to put it over we want to say something about the Zhejiang province, and I believe we did that like this week, that everything has to be inspected and 100% proven to be on the up and up as far as the labor that produced it. And again, the hoops that people will have to jump through in order to be able to prove that will essentially just dry up the commerce that's coming from that area. That's exactly the plan by doing that. But again, this article barely scratched the surface of the devastating effects that sanctions have on targets' populations. They're an act of war and murder, causing famine, poverty, and lack of medical care for the most vulnerable people in targeted countries.
Well, you better get hip to indie left, indie left, indie left.news.